Hey guys, this is Yo. I have for us today my second Dragonflight Season 2 dungeon commentary video. It's going to be a 23 Halls of Infusion. I'll have the logs linked in the description and a link to the uncommentated VOD also in the description if you want to watch that. You'll be able to hear the sounds and our Discord call. Anyways, let's get started. We are going to be slotting this in. I'm playing the Coordinated Assault build, just your standard Mythic Plus build. For this very first pull, we have a priest. We're going to be mind soothing the pack on the right and just running past it. When you're doing this, you want to make sure you don't use a shocking disclosure until you actually pull it. You don't want to pre-pot a shocking disclosure. You can pre-pot like a fleeting elemental potion or just an ultimate elemental potion instead. Anyways, this is going to be our first pull. It's Tyrannical week, so we are not lusting until the first boss. On Fortified week, maybe you would lust on this trash and do a little bit of a bigger pull. The things you'll want to watch out for, number one is those geomancers are going to be jumping around. It's going to create a swirly on the ground, and those will pretty much one-shot you if you get hit by them. Especially on Fortified week, there's like very little chance that you're going to live those. The next biggest thing is the apparatuses, those little Titan balls that are going around. They have two abilities. One is the Expulse, and that's going to do a bunch of damage to your team. You want to make sure you kick that. The other one is Containment Beam. And essentially what that does is it channels a beam of damage onto your team. You can see it when they've got the debuffs. You can see on my player icons, they've got that channeled beam, like that little black icon. That means they've got the containment beam. If you are getting targeted by that, there are three things you can do to nullify that. Oh, actually, watch here. If you see right here, there's a swirly on the ground in that water. Make sure your tank never pulls these guys into the water because you will not be able to see those brown swirlies. There's a swirly over here underneath all the packs, but there's also one in the canal. That will kill you if you don't pay attention to it. Anyways, for the apparatuses, what you can do, if you are getting hit by one, you can disengage with post haste. That will break the channel on you. That's because the channels also have a slow component to the effect, and disengage with post haste will break slows. You can also feign death it. You can see right there, that was the last second wall I got hit by a swirly. My health chunked from 100% to nearly dead. So that was through a 40% wall. Those swirlies are dangerous. Anyways, back to the Titan containment guys. You can feign death them. That'll stop the channel. You can also use a cunning pet and use your pet freedom on yourself. Paladin freedom also works. It'll give you a short immunity, but they'll just immediately recast it onto someone else. So I'd only advise doing that to break the channel if you are like nearly dead. Next up, we've got the defenders. Those guys have two major abilities as well. So they have one, a demoralization shout. I think it's called something like that, and then Spear Flurry. Spear Flurry is just a frontal channel ability that does a bunch of damage. It puts a bleed on you that's really nasty for DPS. If you get one or two of those guys bleeding you, you're probably close to dead if you don't use a defensive or Exil plus health pot. And then the demotivating shout. I never can remember all the names. Demotivating shout just makes you do less damage and healing, so you want to kick that because you want to do damage and healing. You'll see a menu icon flashed for a second. This is an engineering profession bonus for the dungeon for Halls of Infusion. If you click that and you have 25 engineering or higher, I'm an engineer, you will get a cheat death. You've got the 60-minute buff. It lasts pretty much for the entirety of the dungeon. The next person in your party that dies will pretty much be saved instead. So you can watch this buff icon in the top right corner, see when it disappears, see when someone dies. These last two packs are both pretty scary. If you are in a Discord call, I would highly recommend coordinating with your team what's going to be kicking what. You only need one melee kick per apparatus or stop. So like Intimidation or Scatter Shot will work pretty well. I don't play Scatter Shot in this dungeon because of the frogs later on. But if you want to play Scatter Shot, that'll be fine. You can see I just got a Paladin freedom because he was breaking the channel on me. Um, the only kicks you will ever need are going to be on the defenders and on the apparatuses. The Ravagers as a DPS, you don't really need to pay attention to them. They're not going to affect how you play your pulls. It's just the Geomancers with their swirlies, containment apparatuses, and the defenders that just need a single kick. This last pack needs 5 kicks and or stops. That's because there's 2 expulses going off and 3 demoralizing shouts. This is probably the most coordinated you need to be. I would recommend, as a survival hunter, assigning 2 of those stops to yourself. You can focus kick one of them and then use a freezing trap or intimidation on the other one. Also, focus down the apparatuses. They should always be your kill target because they are the scariest things in these dungeons. Nice freezing trap, nice knockup. Having a CD for this pack's also good. I just sent CA. And we are trying to get it killed as fast as possible before this very nasty, nasty boss is going to come. This pack is very scary. This pack and the one before is very scary on Fortified Week. The boss is very scary on Tyrannical Week. But otherwise, it is fairly manageable. One thing you will probably see me do throughout the dungeon, probably coming up, is cast Eyes of the Beast. May be kind of confusing as to why, but it's because I'm playing an Elementium Pocket Anvil, and you can see this buff in the top right corner is ticking down. That buff ticks down when you're out of combat, but casting Eyes of the Beast and canceling it specifically will put you in combat for a couple seconds. So that extends the buff, and I can maintain 5 stacks indefinitely throughout the dungeon as long as I'm paying attention. It's kind of cool, but fairly annoying for the team. The dragon, the evoker in our group said lust, and we're specifying yes. Specifically, we are going to be lusting in phase 2. This boss, Keeper Radius, has 2 phases. He starts at 30%, which is good for execute classes like warriors. We get our kill shot pretty early into the fight, and we also have our serrated bleed doing more bleed damage, just because of the talents that we play. So kind of nice for damage, but it's a pretty scary boss. He has a lot of health, even if he's just starting at 30%. He phases at 15% on the mark. He might be spell queuing for a couple seconds, so you can do some extra damage if he's channeling or if he's casting anything else. But he starts his phasing at 15%, where he will go into the middle and summon some adds. Otherwise, the things you want to be watching out for as a DPS player, the Static Surge is a pretty nasty channel. You want to be trying to keep your defensives for that, like Survival of the Fittest or Health Pot plus Exil. Your healer's probably going to be assigning their healing cooldowns to that. The other big thing you'll notice are those big swirlies. We have a priest, so we are able to mass dispel those because it is a magic dot that gets assigned to the team. If you have a priest, this is a new strat we've just been trying where we all stack together on the boss, immediately mass dispel it so we don't take much damage from the dot component of the power overload, and then immediately try and just run out. I always save disengage for that. You shouldn't want to be disengaging otherwise, because you want to be able to get out of the lightning cloud as soon as possible. Once you hit 15%, you go into this little intermission phase where you have to kill these 4 devices, as my player profile is calling them. It's pretty fast to kill them. You just want to throw some AoE CCs on them. That was Paladin Blinding Light. I used Bull Rush. We overlapped a little bit, but you just stop them from getting their casts off. You don't want to be standing in the circle if they do. And then make sure that they die on top of the boss. And you enter phase 2. I'm getting a little bit of lag. I'm guessing there was a recording hang up. And phase 2 is basically the same, except he does a little bit more damage, and the fields from the power overload is going to be much, much larger. So you will take a couple ticks. For the fight, you want to try and save your defenses specifically for phase 2 and lust, because you don't want phase 2 to long last time. You want to try and get out of this as fast as possible. You can see how big those clouds are. The last thing you should be paying attention to, I guess 2 last things, are just the environmental dodges you need to have. Those swirlies, pretty easy, just don't stand in one spot. If you're a caster, then you're going to be hurting a little bit more, but we're not casters, we're survival hunters, so we're chilling. And the Titanic Fist is a tank frontal. He aims it at the tank, but then the tank can dodge out of it. If you get hit by that Titanic Fist, you will take a lot of damage and get stunned. So it's pretty unfortunate. Here, our healer actually ran out of mana. You can see she has a very little mana left, so she was not able to mass dispel that. And instead, they had to take the channel. And we are struggling right now to keep up because we did not go into that static surge with full health. You can see I've got my health pot on cooldown. I've got Exil that just came up. But we're chilling. We're killing the boss. And we are getting out. I don't think we make it without casualty. Yep, we lose our holy priest. But everyone else makes it. Ending that boss with 100k DPS. You can see that our bleeds are just really helping. It's an execute fight, so we're going to be pumping damage. Coming up here, you have two choices. You can go straight into the Frog Gauntlet, or you can go left to what I like to call the secret passage. No one else calls it that. I just like calling it that. Frog Gauntlet is very scary because there's a lot of swoglets that just come out and focus people, and they hurt really badly on hierarchies. Here you get some nice hunter utility by throwing out flares. Those zealots are invisible when they're moving, so you just kind of got to memorize where they're at. And if they cast on someone while invisible, or if you want to run to one of their aggro range while they're invisible, they'll stun and do a bunch of damage. So having a hunter flare those out can be pretty helpful for the tank. They'll be very grateful for you. Got a zealot at the front of that entrance. There's another zealot that paths up and down these stairs. Our tank managed to grab it out with Consecrate or with one of his hammers that he throws around. Up here next, we've got 3 dragonflies. They all have a dazzle cast. You don't want to let that go off. You want to stop it as soon as possible. Stops or kicks, both fine. It's a melee kick. You can completely handle one. As a survival hunter with Intim and freezing trap and kick, you can handle all 3 of them for quite a while. But we have other people with kicks. They can handle it themselves. We'll do some damage with their GCDs. The zealots, there's another one that paths up and down here. You can see I throw a freezing trap to try and stop him on his pat. Throw a flare. He does not come out. We are wondering where the heck he is. And you can see us kind of nervously pathing forward. I'm throwing out some butcheries. Throw a deep breath out there, wondering where the heck he is. And then bam, they're on their left-hand side. What the heck? The zealots, as a tank, if you have a tank that you're talking to or you play a tank as an alt, you want to make sure that they're not just meleeing you, because they have a stacking melee attack speed / haste debuff that falls off if they don't melee. So you can see the zealot guys, they have a 5, 7+5. They've got that stacking debuff on the left-hand side of their nameplates. And that is their attack speed buff. So they're going to be doing more damage if you let them just wail on you. One of them has 15 stacks right now. 17, and he's just attacking so fast, and our paladin's taking a bunch of damage. You just intim that or kite it, whatever you need. Here we have 3 shock troopers and also 2 zealots. I freezing trap one, I flare out the other, and we are chilling. The shock troopers have a must kick ability. The elemental focus, if that goes off, you're going to take a lot of damage. You're probably going to wipe on fortified. You might be able to react to it if a cast goes off because you didn't have a kick available, and use your trank shot to dispel it, but it's going to do a bunch of damage. It's a lot easier to just kick it. Some weeks we like to pull that 5-pack into the 2 mini bosses, Amy and Cyraz. This week we didn't, because we didn't want them to get super bolstered. And since we're in a pug with 2 random DPS we don't know that well, we didn't want to assign kicks and try and make it work. In a 5 comp, maybe we could do it, but we're just going to keep chill. On this mini boss area, we've got Amy that is casting Pyretic Burst. You want to try and kick every single one of those. It's pretty easy with a prot paladin because he can handle a lot of them himself. But if you don't have a proc paladin, and if you just have a regular tank, then you'll want to try and coordinate that with your team. If you're in a pug, you want to be trying to watch their kicks and trying not to overlap those. Maybe doing fast kicks. If a cast gets off of the Pyretic Burst, a pretty nasty tank debuff will hit them, where they will take a lot of damage. On Fortified, it is much, much scarier. The other mechanics that are going out, we've got Saria summoning a bunch of these extra Zephyrlings. They're just tank fodder. Very nice for padding your damage meters. Very nice for Survival Hunter funnel, actually. You gain quite a bit of single target damage from those extra mobs. So it's nice for us, but it's just bad for the rest of our squad. I'm sure they're happy doing damage. And then lastly, there is a root debuff that will go on to various people. I believe I got it in the very beginning of the pack, you can see. But you can disengage out of it or get it dispelled, and then a big red swirly will appear under whoever had that debuff. You just run out of that, and then you're chilling. Next, we've got the Gulping Goliath. So he's a big frog boss, very fun guy. If you like frogs like me, I've got my frog pet, Hanser, as we like to call him, because that's his name. Gulping Goliath, my group likes to do what I call the ping pong strat. We set down 2 markers. And for this first one, you don't need to move. The gulp cast will come out pretty fast. But the next couple ones, the next sets of frogs are going to be us moving between the 2 markers. His mechanics are just summoning those swoglets that fixate on random members and hurt them pretty bad. He's got this toxic effluva, which is just party-wide damage. And then he's also got Belly Slam, where he targets a random person to jump on. If you've got everyone stacking in melee, it's just a quick dodge for everyone. And then the Overpowering Croak, which is raid-wide damage, party-wide damage, which summons the frogs. Defensives or Exil, pretty good to be using on Overpowering Croak. I believe that does a bit more damage than the Toxic Effluva. You can see we're all moving backwards in a straight line to this other raid marker. The Goliath is coming up, and then he gulps on the swoglets that we all kited together. One and done, easy to kill. You can just keep doing your single target damage, and you are chilling. That's all this boss is. There's no extra mechanics. As long as you can heal through those cooldowns, you are going to be chilling. Heal through those cooldowns being the Overpowering Croak and the Toxic Effluva. It is very scary. I'm not trying to say that this is an easy boss, but if you can survive those sets of damage, then you're gonna kill the boss pretty quickly. So you can see the third gulp came out pretty late. It's always a set cycle. The first one's going to be fast. The second one's going to be kind of medium. Third one's going to be a little bit later. And I think it resets on 5. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think I've ever had the frog go that long. You can do things to help, like Binding Shot or Tar Trap, that will help with kiting the frogs. The reason the frogs are scary, not just because they have a stacking poison dot that kills you at 10, but when you get into a higher key, like a 23 like this is, even on Tyrannical, their melees just hurt really badly. So you want to be making sure that you're just not getting hit by them, because we're DPS players. We're not supposed to take damage to melees. Even if we have mail armor, it's not a fun thing to take damage to. This week, I forgot that even happened. Our holy priest got one banged by the jump. Don't stand in that circle. It'll kill you, as you can see. As it is Afflicted Week, I was getting back to what I'm saying. On Afflicted Week, hunters can't really do anything. And by can't really do anything, I mean we can't do anything at all. It is a complete non-affix for us in terms of what we need to focus on. You just kind of get sad if one gets off and you get your 100% haste debuff. This next section is a bunch of dragon mobs. These dragon mobs are probably the scariest mobs in the dungeon, in my opinion. The reason that is because they've got their Deep Breath, which is a pretty big tank buster, but they also have the Deep Chill. This puts out a magic debuff that does a bunch of ticking damage, But as hunters, we can use disengage to dispel it on ourselves. If you have a shadow priest, you can mass dispel every set. So it's pretty chill. If you switch to a cunning pet, like the mouses in Zaralot Caverns, that's my favorite cunning pet to use. You can also pet freedom someone else every other set. So you can help yourself on every set by disengaging, and then you can dispel your teammates if you don't have a shadow priest taking care of that for you. The other things you need to watch out for are going to be the Earth Shakers. They put down a big circle that stuns and does damage. If they are standing in the water, the circle is a bit harder to see. You can see that's why our tank kind of pulled them out of the water there, so it's easier for the melee in the group to see that circle when it comes out right there. We also have the Gale Singers, which are going to be casting Wind Buffet. That's just a random cast on a random party member that does moderate damage and knocks them back as well. It's annoying for casters because the knockback will stop their casts. There's another circle coming out. You can see how it's pretty tough to see at times. If the Gale Singer gets a cast off on a person at the same time that the dragon is getting its deep chill off, you're probably going to see a death. So they can be pretty important to stop their casts on, especially in the last pack of this area. The Ice Callers also have an ability called like Renewing Mists, something like that. It's pretty much a heal. You want to make sure you're stopping those. Refreshing Tides. See, I can never remember the names just exactly, but I get close enough. You want to stop that because you don't want mobs to be healing in Mythic Plus. We're trying to time this quickly as possible. Wind Buffet, you can see it chunked our Evoker from max health to about 75-60% on Fortified Week. It'll maybe hit them down to 60 to 50%. It doesn't kill you unless you get targeted by multiple things, but it does put you in a pretty scary range when combined with the Proto Dragons. So this last pack, we've got the Gale Singer. I put that as my focus kick because I don't want the Wind Buffets going out. This Deep Chill, very good thing to defensive on. I use Survival of the Fittest, even though we've got a pretty scary boss coming out. I'll have Survival of the Fittest up later in that fight. So it's nice to just stay safe during this last dragon. Make sure that we don't lose any more people. Want to be making sure you're sending as many of your AoE cooldowns as you can. Fury the Eagle, Coordinated Assault. When you're in a pack like this where Coordinated Assault is coming up right before the boss, right before a boss is coming up, I'm probably going to send it here. Yep, just did. Because you get a lot more AoE value from kill shots cleaving onto multiple people than you do from single targets. So even though these guys are dying and I might not get full value, it's still very nice for killing them. You can see how much damage I'm doing down here, 223k. I'm sizably gapping the other DPS that we've got in the group. Survival Hunter just does so much damage right now in this season. It's such a good class. Anyways, we've got Kajin the Unyielding. This is every healer's nightmare in this key. It just does so much rot damage. This is a debuff. You can't stop it. It's just constant ticking damage throughout the fight. It's just what your healer is going to have to live with. Other than that, this boss follows a set cycle of abilities. It will start with an Ice Cyclone, go into a Hailstorm where you have to hide behind an unbroken glacier. The glaciers have two forms. They can be unbroken or chipped. If it's chipped, then it is not safe at all. It will explode if it gets hit by that hailstorm, and the explosion will kill you. It explodes in, I believe, a 12-yard radius, and depending on how the glaciers spawn, if you are hiding behind a good one, you can still be unsafe. So right now we were kind of nervous about this one. We thought it was chipped. We thought it would explode and hit us, but it was not chipped. We were actually completely safe. If you have a chipped glacier standing next to an unchipped glacier, I would recommend just picking a different glacier altogether. It's just too dangerous because it will one-bang your entire team. You'll just die. Other than that, after the hailstorm, it's going to do that glacial, I don't know, the big circles, the donuts. Pretty easy to dodge. You just backstep the first one and then harpoon in and you're completely good. That's what spawns the new glaciers. Then she does another Ice Cyclone and then another Hailstorm. And it is just on and on. Same thing over and over. It's a simple boss, but a scary boss because on Tyrannical, you're just taking so much damage from it. Glacial Surge is the name of the donut spell. Backstep it, harpoon back in. Then make sure you're actively watching your health. I got spell bopped by the paladin at the same time that I used... Oh, there's the explosion. If you saw... Let's try and pause on it when she does the hailstorm. When we see that baited over towards this chipped glacier, it's not about just dodging the frost cyclone. It's going to do an explosion circle. That circle will kill people if you get hit by that. And that happens if it gets hit by a ice cyclone or by the hailstorm. The hailstorm hits every single glacier in the room. The ice cyclone is baited on a random DPS player, or I think maybe just a random party member. You want to be positioning everyone in the group, preferably towards the wall, because you know it's always going to be safe there, but otherwise just away from whatever glacier you're going to be using to hide behind. And then after the frost cyclone goes out, you want your tank to bring it directly towards the glacier and then just hide behind it. You can still melee, and it doesn't give any LOS effects for you, so you'll be able to do as much damage as you need. Fast boss for Tyrannical 23. It only took us about 2.5 minutes to kill it, which our healer was very happy about because she was nearly running out of mana. Lastly, we've got 10 minutes in the dungeon to complete the Gauntlet and the final Primal Tsunami. This Gauntlet is infamous, sorry, pardon my words, because of the waves that it is constantly spawning throughout the Gauntlet. Those waves have a 50-50 chance to either spawn on the left-hand side of the dungeon or on the right-hand side, and you pretty much need to be watching forward and dodging them. Other than that, the mobs themselves aren't that scary. It's just more dragons, ice callers, and earth shakers, and some wind speakers, I believe, as well, later on. But it's pretty easy. One thing people might not instantly realize if it's your first time doing this dungeon, but these pillars will protect you from the waves if you are standing in front of them. So our tank likes to pick those spots as a way to just stand in his consecrate and not have to focus on the waves. That positioning allows us as DPS and as casters, healers, to watch the waves coming forward while he is not paying attention to them at all. So there we've got freedom going out on me. I could have disengaged it, but disengage is a little bit scarier here when you've got the waves and the edges. These edges are not safe. You can disengage off of them and you'll be very sad. You'll get transported back to the beginning of the Gauntlet and your teammates will laugh at you. I know that from experience. Other than that, these Ragers, the Tidal Divergence, if that cast gets off, it's a fairly long cast that they cast when they get to low health. It's pretty much just, if it gets off, they split into a bunch of tiny extra guys that will focus or hit random people, and you just kill them or stop them before the cast gets off. Pretty easy. One thing you'll see right here below my nameplate, if you see my mouse cursor, we've got our healer standing on the edge of this bridge right over here. There is a safe spot on the very edge where this wave actually will not be able to hit you. So you should be able to see... Oh, no, she got knocked back there. Actually, she got knocked back to the beginning. You can see her icon just being zoomed back. But it's pretty precise, as you can see. But it is a safe spot. It will stop you from being able to get hit by those waves while simultaneously letting you not be LOS'd by the pillars. One other thing you can do if you don't care about your looks, some character models are large enough to actually just look over these pillars. So I learned this from Tettles, who is a Boomkin player. Boomkins can just naturally look over the center pillars and won't get LOS'd by them. I think Taurens can sometimes do that. I know I can jump and cast on things. But one toy that everyone should have, I don't know how you get it, but I've always had it since forever. Gammon's Braid is a toy that lets you turn into a large Tauren model, and that is a toy that will give you that model and lets it stay on combat. And it will make you tall enough to look over pillars and be able to cast on things while just turreting behind that pillar. So you can tell your caster friends that, and if they have the toy, they will be very happy because it means they don't have to pay attention to the waves at all. Infuser Saria, she's a fairly simple mob, but a scary mob. She has three things that she does. That aqueous barrier cast, it's just a kick. You should never miss that, because I think a melee kick can handle it. Inundate, which is just party-wide undodgeable damage as far as I'm aware. On Fortify, that's very scary. And then she does the swirly on the ground. A fairly large swirly. Don't trust the visuals on it because it is larger than it looks. But otherwise, you just defensive through the inundates, kick the aqueous barrier, and don't stand in her swirlies, and you'll be chilling. Lastly, we've got 6 minutes on Primal Tsunami. You would think that is quite a bit of time, but this boss takes so long because of the intermission phases. It's got a timed submerge phase. You have about 50 seconds to burn it down when you pull it. You can see the submerge timer in the top right. And once that happens, you have to go through the gauntlet again, essentially. As hunters, it's kind of annoying because if you're playing the acidic hailstone shreds, you're going to be a little bit slower. I'm currently playing those. I'm not playing the Shadow Flame Essence embellishments. I'm an acidic hailstone gamer. So I'm a little bit slow, but you can use your movement abilities like disengage, aspect of the cheetah. I have bull rush, maybe not the best to use bull rush for the gauntlet since the ads that spawn afterwards you need to stop. But we've got ways to get around it. Other than that, Submerge is going to come out. You'll see the gauntlet I was just talking about. The boss is fairly simple. Like I keep saying throughout this dungeon, it's got simple bosses. It's not super complex, but they are still scary nonetheless. If you want to dodge these circles and go around, I'm going to hide behind this pillar. Or actually, no, I'm just going to dodge and bull rush. Oh, there we go. Using bull rush where I didn't want to. These last circles at the end, if you're standing in the circle and you're closer to the edge, you'll be fine. It won't immediately kill you. It's the wave that stops you. The infusers that spawn during that intermission channel onto the boss and powers it up. So you do want to try and stop those channels. We had our evoker die. How'd he die that late? What the heck? So you can see I have freezing trap the guy on the right. That's just to stop his channel while still allowing us to use our other various stops on the inundate casts. Tyrannical, I believe you can let one go out if needed and everyone is topped, but you don't want to let two go out. You want to be using your stops like freezing trap right there. Bull rush if you have it, if you're a Tauren. War stomp if you have it. Hodge if you're a paladin. Intimidation, scatter shot, stuff like that. It's all about coordinating with your group and trying to make sure you guys don't overlap your stops. If you do die during the intermission, your body will stay in the gauntlet until the Primal Tsunami comes back up. So our evoker's dead body is over here, and he's going to get a B-res for damage because we have B-reses. But otherwise, yeah, you can get a B-res, but it is fairly embarrassing to die in the gauntlet. Other than that, for this phase, I have not talked very much about it. Infused globules. He casts a bunch of random ones, but he also casts one under every player's model. So if you can, and you have a melee group, you want to make sure that you stack on top of each other, and then ideally you tell each other where you're going to move. So our group likes to stack on top of each other and then move right when globules comes out. We kind of preset that as what we expect each other to do. And it works fairly well for dodging them and grouping them up together, so it's not super hard. They will go under the boss. Be wary of the circles moving under the boss because it can sometimes be hard to see. Here I'm actually switching to a fortitude pet because I had to use Survival of the Fittest and Turtle on the last set. We had another death during the gauntlet. What the heck is going on? First the dragon, now the druid. Ooh, that's rough. But when the boss powers up, it's going to do quite a bit more damage when it does its party-wide damage. I forget the name of it. You'll see it come up, I'm sure. So you want to make sure you're using a defensive after the first and second intermission. There's a good bull rush and blinding light combining together. Other than that, we are kind of getting nervous. We only have one more phase worth of time. Even if we do have a minute in submerge, if the submerge goes off, we're going to lose. So our paladin's running out right now to try and get a B-res as fast as possible and make sure we have enough damage. Here's a good freezing trap on inundate. I don't have anything else I can do. My bull rush, my Tim's all dead, but the mob's dead. So we have 1 minute, 50 seconds actually, rather, for this last submerge. Tempest's Fury is the name of the ability you want to be using your defensive. That was my Fortitude of the Bear, and I still got chunked down to like 20% health. That probably would have one-shot me, and this guy only has 19 stacks of the debuff. If you let those infusers just channel on him, he is going to do way more damage than that, though. So you want to be watching out for that, especially on a higher key level. Other than that, it's just a race for DPS. We've got 12 seconds, 11 seconds less. And then bam, we have probably a beacon coming out. That took a huge chunk of damage right there. And we win with seconds to spare. And that brought us up to 30-50. Anyways, that was my 23 Tyrranical Halls of Infusion. I hope you guys enjoyed my commentary. It's a little bit rambly this time. Didn't really think about what I was going to say that much. But I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you guys learned a thing or two from this video. If you are still watching, then you probably like this content. And I would really appreciate if you guys could like, comment, or subscribe. I do read every comment that gets posted on my videos, even if I might not respond to everything. I do read it and I take your words to heart, and I truly appreciate the kind comments that you guys give. Anyways, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and or night. Have a good one. Thanks.